Hello everyone, and welcome to TCCA's first Critical Update webinar of 2021. My name's Tony Gray, and I'm Chief Executive of TCCA, the global representative body and advocate for open standards for the critical communications sector. Today's webinar takes a look at the status of critical broadband across Europe, focusing on the successes achieved and the challenges faced thus far by European government operators from Belgium, France, Germany, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. So this is an excellent opportunity to learn about the different stages and phases around Europe, to find out how the different projects are developing, and to participate in a live Q&A session with the experts from each nation. Please submit any questions you may have during the course of the webinar using the questions pane on the right-hand side of your screen. If you're on a mobile phone, this appears at the bottom of the screen. If your question is directed to a particular presenter, please indicate as such. Assuming there's time immediately after the presentation, your presenters will answer as many as possible, and if there are any that don't get addressed during the webinar, they'll be responded to afterwards. The presenters' slides will be available after the event, and there will be a recording of the webinar available online, as well as a document containing all the questions and answers. So now I'm pleased to welcome your presenters for today, beginning with Christophe from Astrid in Belgium. Over to you, Christophe.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much to give us the opportunity to speak today and give an update of the situation in Belgium. I have today a short presentation that is an update of the presentation I had the opportunity to give during the CCW last November. And here it comes. Okay, so as I explained then, Astrid is an initiative of the public authorities. It is established in 1998 to federate on one mobile network the PPDR critical communications in Belgium. After 20 years of operations, we can say that it's really a success. We deliver today to more than 57,000 users, and that is 40% more than the initial planning. We deliver mission critical voice communication on the Tetra network. It's a service, a network that is good at what it has to deliver. It is a multidisciplinary network. It allows critical communications between different disciplines. It delivers secure communications. They are encrypted. It's a reliable and robust network, and it is built to be resilient to external failures such as electrical blackouts. Also, starting in 2014 with Blue Light Mobile, we were able to provide to our end user with broadband data communication. Blue Light Mobile is a solution that is based on an MVNO model that allows Astrid to complement commercial solutions with specific PPDR quality of service characteristics. And I'm thinking about a priority of traffic, preemptions, but also access class barring. Still, Blue Light Mobile is a limited solution. It is not a mission critical services. It does not offer all the needed characteristics for PPDR communication. If we think about all these voice features that Tetra has, if we think about the robustness of commercial network, the availability, but also the control of the public authorities on the critical communications. So we know we had to evolve, and that's the situation today. And of course, with the emergence of new user requirements with broadband data communications, but also the development of the new technologies, 4G, 5Gs, we had to consider a new generation of services. By 2015, also, we had to consider the life cycle of the network. The Tetra network was already rolled out 15 years ago. So we had to see what to do, invest again in Tetra or switch to a new technology, new services. At that time, the standardization of these new services on the new technology was not mature enough. So just like many countries, we decided to invest again in Tetra with the Tetra midlife update that allows us to extend the life cycle of the Tetra network to an horizon of 2030. Also, we consider doing the same with Blue Light Mobile. By doing so, we can guarantee the continuity of the service to an horizon of 2030. As a common understanding, there is a convergence of these two services, mission critical voice, and mission critical data, onto a new mission critical broadband network. That's the way we want to go. And that's the roadmap. That's the journey we started. So in 2017, 2018, we started that journey in different phases. The first step of the journey, of course, was guaranteeing the service continuity. Not that we don't want to build the new service early, but we understand that it will take some time to migrate the existing user from the legacy services to a new service. It will take time. So the next step of the journey was elaborating the strategy, investigating what are the user needs, what are the possible scenarios. And at Astrid in Belgium, we decided that we would go for an MVNO model, not a dedicated network, and I will come back to that. The other steps of the strategy at that time, 2018, 2019, was building the foundation, creating the condition that will make the future services possible. Obtaining spectrum or gaining from the partner, the MNOs. We are talking about an MVNO model. Obtaining from the MNO the necessary guarantees that the communication, the mission critical communication, would be possible in the future. So that's the journey we started. As far as the user requirements are concerned, we investigated, we challenged and we followed all the works that were done at international level. So there were some requirements set up in the early 2013, and these are the basis for the requirements for the next generation communication network. Also, Astrid is part of the standardization process, and we are also taking part of international initiatives like Broadmap and Broadway project. Astrid is the lead procureur for the Broadway initiative. When we consider the different models for the strategy, the next generation strategy, next to the existing model, of course, that we already decided to extend to 2040, it was clear that we could not extend it a long time further. So it's not, we cannot extend it sine die. It's not an option. So we had to consider all the other solutions that are based on dedicated network, but also the partial use or the full use of commercial networks. Building a dedicated network was in the early phase not an option. Just because in Belgium, the PPDR and Astrid, we lost the war for spectrum. We cannot get enough support, not for the political community, but also for the end user community. We could not get the support to gain the necessary spectrum. That is one issue. The other issue, of course, is the high investment that is needed to build a dedicated network. At the opposite side, we have this full commercial proposal. That is also a model that we did not consider in Belgium because the lack of the low possibility of control for the public authorities on the critical communication. We think that sovereignty of the critical communication is a key aspect for the future. So in Belgium, the best fit for all this model is the hybrid solution, and it's a solution that is based on a MVNO model. Is it a full MVNO or MOCN? We are considering also MOCN now. But it is a model within which Astrid would be a trusted operator, would operate a core network and have a control of the core network, and that would allow the public authorities to have the control on the critical communication. The coverage would be based on the use of the RAN of mobile network, and we would try to avoid any locking situation by working with different MNOs. So that's the situation we had in 2018, 2019. To allow this, we also had lots of discussion in Belgium with the different stakeholders, the government, the regulator, but also the MNO in Belgium. And the discussion were on the possibility to obtain enough guarantees from the MNOs that the critical communication would meet the high requirements that are set. So we created a legal framework in which the MNOs will provide these guarantees to the public safety services, and these are conditioned on the service they will have to deliver. They will have to deliver the service, the RAN. They will have to deliver the priority, the preemption, the access class barring. They will have to allow the national roaming between different operators, so that in case of a failure on one network, we are still in a position to deliver the service with another operator. Also, there are also provision with special measure so that Astrid will be in a position to reinforce, to make the network, the service, more robust than a commercial service. So with the time, we didn't achieve our journey. We were late with our roadmap just because it took time. So with time came new technology. The 5G technology was coming, so we have to review our strategy. We have to review our strategy because 5G brings new possibilities. It brings new possibilities when we are talking about slicing. That's a new way of providing the service. It also brings new possibilities because of the emergence of private networks. It's new given that we have to take into consideration in the strategy. So also there are no concerns about will the technology deliver the promises? Can we achieve all the features with the 4G and 5G technology? I'm thinking about direct mode operation. We know in Tetra, will proximity services will be equivalent to that? That's one concern we have. Also, air-ground-air communication is also another concern. So there are new developments that we have to take into account. Also, the situation in Belgium has evolved, and it's quite recent. We have a new government, so they are game-changing momentum for the moment. So what we do for now is restarting our journey. We start again the new roadmap. The service is guaranteed. We are now in a process of updating our strategy. Taking into account the new possibilities of the technology, slicing, taking into consideration the emergence of private network. These are elements that we are now considering. Also, and that's a new given from last week, the government, we have a new government in Belgium that will start a new dynamic for the rollout of 5G. The government published take decision last week and approved a new legal framework. At least the principles are approved, and it's in discussion for the moment to start again the auctions for the 5G network, including the 700 spectrum. With this new legal framework, there are clear conditions that will be set up for the rollout of the network, and it's conditions about the availability, the time frame within which the service has to be deployed, but also the conditions for the mobile operator to provide service for Astrid and for the PPDR. So we expect the auctions to be launched by the end of 2021, starting 2022. And of course, at Astrid, we take these elements into consideration. We are now in a process of building and negotiating a new management contract with the government. Astrid is a public-owned company. We work with a management contract, but we will also present in that framework a new investment plan, in which we will provide a new model. We are considering new models now. MVNO was considered, but we today considered also MOCN model. We will also consider the coming of 5G and slicing technology. And we will also present to the government a new rollout. We already have an horizon of 2030 for the continuation of Tetra. So meaning that we will launch, we want to build a new service far beyond 2030 with a new pickup strategy for the new user. Probably we will start with data services and have a progressive migration of voice services. So that's the new update for Belgium. So that's the introduction, my presentation and the introduction for the panel discussion and for the question you may have for Belgium. So that's the end of my presentation. I will hand over now the floor to Gérard Cormona, who is the head of the Office of Network Technology in the Directorate of the National Gendarmerie. So he will present us the status for
you see. So in France, we are one step further compared to Belgium. We have already defined our strategy. So the agenda of this presentation: first, the context of the program, a view of the timeline, the architecture, it's already defined, the technical stakes, and some points I would have time to emphasize in the end of this presentation are the need for regulatory changes and the evolution of the law to have a fully operational broadband network for PPDR. So first, the context. Why do we build this new network and for whom? Legacy networks were only for police and gendarmerie at the beginning, firefighters after. The new broadband network will be built for all PPDR actors in the country, including national strategic operators, and very important, will be, as soon as they begin, fully interoperable with all the potential partners, including international partners, mainly thanks to the Broadway project. The evolution of this network, as you all know, we'll have the Olympic Games in Paris in 2024. We hope it will happen according to the present situation. And our main milestones for the new networks are the Rugby World Cup in 2023 and the Olympic Games. So we are starting very quickly for the number of users with 0 users in 2022, 90,000 in 1 year, in fact, in 6 months, because the Rugby World Cup will be in June. And 1 year after, it will double with almost 200,000 users. So we have to have something ready very quickly. So the timeline of the project. For the moment, we have already started, and we are in the final stretch of the requirement. We have already one small delay because it's written that the procurement will be issued on the 1st of February. In fact, we have 2 more weeks before sending the requirements to the candidates who will be selected, and they will get the requirements on the 12th of February. Pardon, we have the candidates on the 12th of February, and it's on the 12th of March we'll send them the requirement after the selection, because they need more times to build the consortium to be able to answer to all the lots of the procurement. The architecture of the network is based on 5 fundamental principles. First, we have to make the transition from the legacy technology, narrowband networks, to a broadband network. Very important is the use of 3GPP standardization for all that will make the new networks. Use the French mobile network operators for this transition, and we will mainly buy service and not only purchase equipment. We need priority and prevention of these MNO networks, and it's not so easy. And in the end, we need full interoperability between forces, remove the silos, and have an international operability too. So this is for your information. I won't be long on this slide with all the complicated, but it's there to prove you that we have already defined our architecture and that we already know what we want to build. It was complicated, and I think it's the right choice for our networks. It's not very far from what Christophe said previously. It's the same kind of choice as Astrid did too. One of the main features of these new networks is that it will have a dedicated core with the full MVNO architecture, and we want to be able to connect to 2 MNOs, the first one in 2022, and when it's fully operational with the first one, we would connect a second MNO to be able to have a better coverage and a more reliable network. We see that we also want to connect to other radio access network, because in France we have the chance to have dedicated spectrum, but we only have 5 plus 3 megahertz, so that's not enough to build a network on your own. We need operators for more bandwidth, but this spectrum will be used for deployable coverage extension, and also we will have a deal with vital importance operators and swap service against frequencies. So we will be able to use the private LTE networks, and in exchange of the frequencies and the spectrum, that will give us an access for our forces on the premises. Because generally, like nuclear power plant or airport, these areas are very badly covered by operators, and it's areas we need very good coverage. So we think it's a good deal with the partners. And also talking about spectrum, it's still a scarce resource. We have the chance to have 8 megahertz. I imagine it's not possible, and we think that in the future we'll need some more frequencies, and we think we will have a request for additional spectrum in the future for 10 or 15 more megahertz, mainly I think in the lower band under 700. We don't need the very wide band like operators in the high frequencies with more than 100 megahertz in the 5G. We don't have enough users for this, but I think we will really need more spectrum for our semi-private networks. The 3GPP framework compliance is, as I said previously, very important, mainly for interoperability and for the ability to have efficient procurement. So we are still advocating for a very strict implementation of the PGPP specifications. It will be done in the tenders, and it's important in the international project. And we're also asking to our national partners to have the same approach to be able to interoperate with them. LRF doesn't already exist, but we have a first brick, it's called PC Storm. It's a project that was started by the gendarmerie and is now operational for the intervention forces and will be deployed for all the blue forces, police and gendarmerie. It can be considered as the first brick of the future radio network only for the police and gendarmerie, and we have to extend it to the firefighters, ambulances, and other actors, other PPDR actors, either public or private. This solution has been very useful for us because we have learned many things, the constraints, and it has helped us to define our requirements for the coming procurement. So now, we'll focus on something more specific. Future Radio Network is not only a technical and operational project. We need some evolution in the law. The legal issues are very important on two different points. First, we have to have evolution to build the networks, and we'll see in the end that we also need evolution to be able to use this new kind of networks. Today in France, the regulators knows only two kinds of networks: the public ones, Orange, SFR, like other Vodafone in the other countries, and the private LTE networks. Ours is something different, so we need to define the status of a PPDR network to be fully able to use the priority and the preemption in public networks, to have a relevant use of our spectrum, and to be able to have also the national roaming between operators, which is not completely allowed now by the regulator. So it's important to have this kind of evolution in the French telecommunication law. But to do this, we think we can do this alone in the world. As you've seen, Finland and Belgium have also done almost the same thing in our country to have the right to use the priority and the preemption and to go against the net neutrality. We think that we have to harmonize things not only at national but at international level, and we need to do this with our international partners, TCCI for sure, the GPCirc. We groups all the PPDR operators all around the world, not only in Europe, to go to see the European Commission and see the COCOM for the 5G regulation. One of the first things we did was to go and see the Commission and have the PPDR identified as a vertical in the 5G. So still, I think, at an international point of view, many things to do. And on the national point of view, we have to work with the Ministry of Finance, with the regulators, and in partnership with all the MNOs, because they are our real partners on the operational point of view. Another point is very important for us is how to use these new networks, because it's okay, you have a broadband network, you are able to convey pictures, video, any kind of personal information. But today, in Europe, you have GDPR. In many countries, you have rights and human rights law. How can you deal with this? In which condition can we transmit video permitting facial recognition? It depends on national law, and in France, for the moment, for example, it's forbidden for drones to transmit videos. It has been forbidden until the law evolves, and so we're still advocating the review of the French security law, and we are now actively working for the evolution of the interior security code. There is a bill which is now discussed in the parliament in France, and we hope it will give us all the legal tools to be able to use these new networks. Okay, I think I've been a little bit too long, as usual, so I thank you. And I now give the floor to Luz.
Thank you, Gerard, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Luz Fernandez, and I work for the German Federal Agency for Public Safety Digital Radio, also known as BDBOS. And I'm very happy to give today and talk to you about the evolution of critical communications in Germany. And I would like to start with the network, with the critical communication network as it is today. BDBOS operate the largest data network worldwide with more than 4,700 base stations and almost 1 million subscribers right now. The network had a great network coverage, geographical coverage, and a very good network availability, as you can see in the figures in this slide. In this network, the Tetra network offers currently secure and reliable voice communications for public safety organizations, and BDBOS has to ensure the functionality and reliability of the network until at least 2030, as other colleagues has commented before. And in parallel of that, we see, of course, that the technology is in progress and that this progress brings or increase the user requirements for mobile communications, and not only in the general public, but also for public safety. And in order to meet these both requirements, the evolution that we see and the operation until 2030, the current Tetra network requires modernization and further development. This is our current challenge. The modernization consists basically on IP migration that is not only necessary to guarantee the functionality until 2030 of the current Tetra voice communication, but it is also a prerequisite for implementing future mission-critical broadband applications. And when I say mission-critical broadband applications, I mean data services that can meet the high requirements of public safety in terms of availability, reliability, and security. And we have the perspective that these mission-critical services are currently not possible solely with data services via commercial operators or commercial networks. And that's why we envision an hybrid network design. And when I say we, I mean BDBOS together with the federal government and the federal states, because what you can see here is a jointly developed and agreed vision of the future network that has been worked on in the past year. So we have a very close work with the federal state and the federal governments on this vision and also on the requirements of the networks. And that's we are currently on the very left-hand side of the picture, where we have a Tetra network separately and independent from the commercial networks currently. But at the same time, we are preparing for this broadband network, or this broadband future. And at some point in time, we will implement a dedicated broadband core network, what you can see depicted in green. And at this moment, it will enable the possibility to connect the Tetra world with the broadband world with this dedicated core network. And that will be the enabler to enhance this Tetra network with data services. And as this dedicated network evolve and expand and becomes bigger, and it's able to meet these high requirements I made before regarding availability, reliability, and security, it will not only enhance the Tetra network, but it will be at some point replace the Tetra network when talking about voice services, for example. But at the end, if you look at the very right-hand side, you see it's still a hybrid network. We still have commercial services that will enhance this dedicated vision. So that is how it looks like. And when I say that we are currently working towards or getting ready for this broadband, I refer to one of the things that we are currently doing is the test of hybrid broadband networks, which BDBOS is conducting on behalf of the Broadband Task Force of the Conference of the Ministers of Interior. The focus of the test is to analyze those hybrid networks in terms of network transmissions, the prioritization of public safety traffic, which has also been addressed by my colleagues before, and how to guarantee that in such a hybrid scenario, we still have uniform usage and network management. And important thing is that this test is not only a technical test, what you can imagine when thinking about the laboratory, but it's also include analysis from a more theoretical point of view regarding also security aspects and legal consideration, some of which has been also addressed as concerned or things to be included by my colleagues before. And also yes, legal security and governance, of course. Governance is also very important, how these hybrid networks can be managed. But with a little bit more of detail, this test has started in March last year, and they are being developed with or run with 2 mobile network operators in Germany, Deutsche Telekom and Vodafone. The technical part of the test, or for the technical part of the test, we have equipment deployed at BDBOS owned test platform and also at the operators test labs. And when we talk about hybrid networks, we talk about the, or we focus to try to analyze how the combination of the following building blocks interact with each other. How are the symptoms handed over between a dedicated network, in a RAN sharing scenario, and also in a roaming scenario. And of course, also investigated the mechanism for prioritization and preemption. That's a very high level diagram of what is being run, or it's been how the test looks like. As I said, one of the part of the test are the dedicated network, which is depicted in blue here at the top in the picture. The dedicated BDBOS network consisting of both the access network on the left and the core network, represented here by EPC. It's the LTE language for the core network. And in parallel, we have the commercial operator network with the green, or in green, also with the radio access and the core network parts. And then what we analyze is an end user depicted here with a smartphone to the very left-hand side, when it moves and changes from one cell to the other, depending, so we analyze how this handover in the hybrid infrastructure looks like, which can be a RAN sharing where the traffic is then connect it to the dedicated core, or I see that there is a arrow missing for the roaming part. Yes, in the roaming scenario would then the transition happen in another part. On the left, on the right hand side, you can also see some nice picture that were taken on the lab. For example, how to control in the middle with the smartphones the transition from one cell to the other. Most of the tests have been already performed, but the project itself will run until March this year, so there is some additional tests that are going to be run until then. And of course, all the findings from the test, that includes, as I said, not only this technical perspective, but also the other theoretical analysis, will be reported to the Broadband Task Force and to the Conference of the Ministers of Interior during the first half of this year. In parallel to that, BDBOS is also working very close with the federal government and the federal states. We are developing and will develop together this broadband strategy, this hybrid network model I showed you before. And that means that we are preparing further decisions concerning this model for the next administrative council, which will also take place during the first half of the year. And these are two important milestones, regarding decisions. But there is also a third one, which is as important as the previous one, which is that BDBOS will also start exploratory talks with the mobile network operators in very close collaboration with the federal governments and the federal states to win information also regarding this hybrid model that I showed you at the beginning. So with the information coming from this talks and with the decisions that are going to happen in the first half of the year or during this year, we will have a more concrete picture of the hybrid network and when the different phases are going to start during this year. So it's an important year, a lot of decisions to come, and that is how it looks like currently in Germany. So happy to take your question afterwards. But before that, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Herman, from the Police of the Netherlands. So Herman, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to tell you something about the situation with mobile broadband, mission critical mobile broadband in the Netherlands. Although I work for the Dutch police, we're always working on a multi-solution, so it's for police, fire, ambulance, military police, and others who have involvement in the public safety organizations. When you look at the Dutch situation, we currently have a proper working C2000 system. It has been renewed in the year 2020, so it's up and running, and it will be there for something like 5 to 8 years. It's a nationwide system. It has connection to 2 multi-organization control rooms. It's used mainly for voice and data, which is the status part of the system. And we have something like 80,000 PPDR users. At the moment, there is a tender procedure running where we're looking at a kind of fallback solution with an over-the-top PDT application, which will support the current system. It's a system we own ourselves. It's a government-owned and government-operated. We have some other infrastructures which are not owned by us. They are usage of the national MNOs. What you see is that the police is one organization in the Netherlands, and they have a nationwide contract where there is something set aside for priority and capacity. We have 25 so-called safety regions, and they have combined contracts with some operators, and they have priority. Our ambulance organization is a bit mixed, so they are not all at the same operator, but they try to combine their forces to enlarge their ability to have better products. And we have mainly the military police, where we're talking about mission critical communications, and they have, for other means, a nationwide contract. What are they using it for? When you look at the police, they have something like 100,000 SIM cards where something like 40 or 50,000 operational officers can use applications for situation awareness, for body-worn cameras, for all kinds of register lookup, for geo information, and the same applies for part of the fire, where they have a lot of geo information, situation awareness. And the ambulance is working quite a lot with medical information, like written information, but also about real-time monitoring and video of the ambulance and the situation of their patients in the car. What we all see in public safety is that route information, just where to go and how to drive, is very important. You would not say it's mission critical, but young people hardly know how to use a map, or if you say you have to go there, they will always look at a smart device. So it's almost mission critical. And mobile office applications are also used commonly on these infrastructures. When you look at the recent past, because we're using C2000 already for almost 20 years, but in April 2019, there were some questions raised about the new C2000 system, the Tetra system, because the manufacturer had been taken over by a Chinese company, Hytera, and there were worries about is that the right direction where we go, such an important system being delivered by a Chinese company. There had been a research if there is a risk. Well, it was not a direct risk, but the briefing in November 2019 to the Parliament from the Ministry of Security and Justice was, you have to replace the current Tetra system with something new, and that choice was made. Let's try to see how a next generation mobile broadband solution could work. The next step was a feasibility study, which had been delivered by an external company from the government. Due to Corona and other things, it took some while to really look at what is the outcome of that feasibility study. So it was conducted in spring last year, fall last year, September, October. It has been reviewed by the CIOs of the 4 PPDR organizations, and a briefing went to the Parliament from the Ministry of Justice and Security, telling, well, we will move on because we see possibilities in that feasibility study to replace the current mission-critical voice system by a mobile broadband solution. And that was also the starting point of a more intensive program where there is a lot of activities going on from November last year, going on to spring this year, where we will set up a public business case, do a market exploration, set up the program outline, and see how we can find a high-level technical description. But first I will go into what that feasibility study was about and what the result of the feasibility study has been. The main question was, can we replace our current mission-critical communication system in a responsible manner with a new mobile broadband infrastructure? So there were 3 basic scenarios, and the 0 scenario was just as a reference. We set up something like 13 main criteria, which are a lot of sub-criteria. So we had something like 65 criteria looking at all the scenarios. And the version was, are we going to build our own network and operate it on our own? Or are we going to have a fully outsourced, fully service from a national MNO? Or will it be a hybrid situation where we have something like our own core network and connect to a radio network from a MNO? And as you heard from other colleagues already this afternoon, there are a lot of possibilities within those 2 options, but these 3 are the main options. When you look at all the criteria and the outcome, that building your own solution would be quite expensive. It would take a long time to realize. The frequencies that have been set aside for public safety will not be sufficient to support all services. And we don't have a current operator within the government that is capable of operating such a network. Going from operating a Tetra network is quite something different than operating a 4G or 5G solution. So that's why we say we don't have it. We know what mission critical is, but we're not very good at 5G and operating a core network or even a radio network. Looking at the other two options, the fully outsourced option and the partial outsourced options, we considered them both as achievable, and they both have pros and cons. And in general, you could say by fully outsourced, you depend on the quality of your contract, you depend on how your MNO or your service provider will develop the services, and you have to negotiate a lot and have more dependency. You don't need a big organization with a lot of technical knowledge, but being a government, that could be a risk that you depend completely on a commercial party. When you look at the partial outsourced solution, you have more control over security, over user management, over roles and rights, but you need to have more knowledge in your own organization, and you have to interface your core network, your core solution with the network from a nationwide operator. So that will take an interface and also negotiation. But both the second and third model were both seen as achievable. It also meant that we did not look at everything. It was a feasibility study, and there were something like 13 basic recommendations to dig into deeper, to find out how the program should get shape and what the boundaries are and what the main solution should look like. And then you're talking about things like risk assessment, having a proper market study with the Dutch MNOs, look at the international development, look at what the requirements from the users are, see if, call it, how do you call them, the trials to find out what the functional needs are. So those 13 recommendations, we are now looking at how to give them some more body and see what they mean for the program. It means that the next step is setting up a program. It has the working title NOVA, which means something like a complete new system and architecture. So a proper name should be thought of. And what that program is doing is looking at how the tender procedure will be, involve users on their functional needs, start field trials, and think about all the regular tasks like project facing deliverables finance, and report to what we call the multi-CIO for the governance. When you look at the picture on the right side, the blue is mainly the project team and the management. So the owner is the Ministry of Security and Justice, but the 4 CIOs from police, fire, ambulance, and defense are the ones who really steer the project on a daily basis if they are heading in the right direction. On the right-hand side, you see the more governance part of, is it good for the public safety, is it good for the safety regions? And on the left side, you see the owner, the Ministry of Safety and Security, for budgeting, for all kinds of other things. And below are advisory boards like intelligence and other ministries who are also involved. Once you set up a public business case where we're working on, there's a general guideline for the Ministry of Finance. We have to elaborate on the 13 conclusions and the advice to look into them. We're working on a market exploration at the moment to feed the public business case. And we're also looking at how should a high-level system architecture, solution architecture look like. Because once we have a project plan, a business case, and a budget, and a kind of phasing and planning, we have had a lot of experience in the Netherlands with some IT projects that didn't go too well, over budget, too much time spending. So there is a so-called ICT assessment office, which will look at the start phase of this project and see if it is possible to govern it, to be in control of the project, and see if the wanted outcome will be realized with the ideas behind the plan. And if that, call it the BIT organization, is giving a negative advice about those plans, you cannot start your program. So it's a very important step that the Ministry of Security and Justice is saying, well, we have a good plan, judge it and give an advice on make it better or accept that it is going to be this way. When you look at more or less the time frame, we started with the research. We're now in phase 2 definition, where all these steps I've just explained are taking place. An important step we think will be taken is somewhere before the summertime, is that ICT assessment, the decision of the Ministry of Justice and Security how to move on, inform the Parliament about mission critical services, and then we can go into the realizations phase, where we will go deeper into the requirements, adjustment of law and regulations, because we think they are needed to have a solution from a commercial operator, and something about coverage, about capacity, about maintaining the network, having the spare parts provision. Those things need law and regulations. And then we can start with the European tender. What does the content look like if you look at the growth path of NOVA as the results? We think that in a stage 1, it will be 4 or 5 stages. It will be a basic provisioning of 4 or 5G functionalities. We will look into the legal aspects and the procedure contract, basically security, a core, 4G or 5G core, and looking at priority services. Then the next stage will be looking more at the mission critical attributes, which will take care of the availability of the system, security and coverage, and connectivity for control rooms, for things in community, like people having a video you want to send to the public safety organizations, like sharing information with other public safety organizations. And in stage 3, we will think that infrastructure release number 17 from the GTPP will be that far that we can really say there is a mission critical service available, data, video, push to talk, that can be implemented and used nationwide. And after that stage, we will go to stage number 4 and see how we can look at special solutions. Could be either coverage on the boundaries of the country or buildings and those kind of things. And the last stage will be phasing out the current Tetra system and looking at, can we broaden the scope of the project by offering services to other governmental bodies as well. In parallel, we are working at a lot of things, because we think working on Broadway, being member of GTPP, active in a lot of TCCA international working groups, will give us more knowledge, will give us good contact with the colleagues in other countries, and will give us information internally to give direction to our program and see how it develops. What we also do is have a lot of contact with other parts of the Dutch government and IT project, because you see that offering a mission critical mobile service means that you can share information. Instead of looking at voice or looking at applications, you're looking at sharing information. You gather information, you analyze information, you share information, and it can be done real time without looking at a building, because it can be mobile, it can be independent of your location, which could have big impact on mission critical organization, way of working, and looking at the role of the control room and other bodies in the public safety world. So that is also important. It's not only about technology, but it's also about the impact on the whole of the public safety organizations and society as well. For now, I want to end the presentation and then have given you some idea about where we are. We are, I think, in parallel with a lot of other countries in Europe. Some are a bit ahead of us, some are a bit behind, but we are all looking at the same kind of solution. So cooperation and exchanging information in the way we do today and in other ways is very important. And I would like to thank you for the opportunity to share this information. I would now like to hand over to my colleague, Sanne Stijven, who works for the Swiss government, and he's a program director for the public safety and mission critical project they're running.
So yes, now about Switzerland, outside of the European Union, yet at the heart of Europe. Thanks for the introduction, Herman. I'm leading the secure mobile broadband communication project in Switzerland, or MSK as it is known from its German acronym. This is also the 5th country presentation in a row, so by now you should also be able to spot the differences and the similarities between the projects. But briefly, a couple of words about the organization I belong to and what we do. Within the Federal Office of Civil Protection, there is the telematics unit, which is responsible for information and communication systems aiming at the safety and security of the population. So we are responsible for warning systems and like, for example, the emergency sirens. We have also an app for alerting and informing the general public. And there's 3 systems that are closely related to each other. The first one is Polycom, which is today's mission-critical narrowband network, providing voice and group call communication to first responders. It's based on the Tetrapol standard, so not Tetrapol. Then it's MSK, the topic of today. It's a future mission-critical 3GPP-based mobile broadband for public safety. I will then give you my view as program director, where we stand and where we are going. And these 2 projects will, of course, need to interact with each other. There's even interconnection and interoperability. And these 2 projects will also benefit from another project, SDVS, which is a future data integrated system, also with the aim of providing an IP network, an hardened IP network, and a situation monitoring system for Switzerland. So where do we stand with critical broadband for public safety in Switzerland? Well, first things first, and my colleagues have also mentioned it. We have put the legal framework in place, and we had to make some adjustments to a couple of laws. First of all, there was a revision of the Civil Protection and Civil Defense Act. Now this project has its dedicated article, so we can say that this project has a legal existence now. And in that piece of legislation, there's also the responsibilities are set between the Federal Council, the Confederation, and the cantons. The cantons, Switzerland is divided into cantons a bit the way other countries are divided into provinces or states or Bundesländer. So, for example, it's stated that the Confederation is responsible for the central component of the future systems, and the Confederation should also ensure that the system is functioning as a whole, whereas the cantons, they are responsible for the decentralized component and also have to look at the power supply. Then we had also an ordinance being revised for this project, and we also looked at the Telecommunication Act. And now this Telecommunication Act also states that for rescue and security organization, telecommunication services has to be provided in all situations and not only in normal situation. So also in so-called special situation and extraordinary situation. We tend to forget that in the day-to-day business. But now, as the COVID pandemic has also shown, there is more than the normal situation. Even Switzerland went into special situation, one specific case of special situation with the COVID pandemic. And for sure, this is when those type of networks needs to work, must work for, and will be in use by the first responders more than ever. And my colleagues have also mentioned about spectrum and spectrum being allocated for public safety, for PPDR. And you will recognize the same bands as my colleagues have also mentioned. Specialists will recognize that this is PPDR option B. So we have 2 × 5 MHz in band 68 and 2 × 3 MHz in band 28. That's in the 700 MHz range. So with that, you can certainly do something, but it's not enough to provide full broadband to first responders and to take care of mobile and deployable systems like cell on wheels or system on wheels, and eventually to also deal with an air-to-ground system. So here, this is yet another incentive why we should also collaborate with the mobile operators. So going forward, we also have a Federal Council decree that states that we should start a pilot project, and that decree states that the FOCP is mandated for it, and we're mandated to implement a pilot project for MSK. Should we do that alone? Well, actually, not at all. We should do that in collaboration with the cantons and interested operator of critical infrastructure. And the main role of FOCP is to coordinate. And then you see on the picture which cantons are being involved. The name of these cantons are given, and also corresponds more or less to the big cities of Switzerland. And these cantons, most of them have already started with proof of concepts, maybe measurements of prioritization mechanism on mobile operators. Some of them would like to work with dedicated tactical bubbles. Some others have worked on interconnection and on group calls. And some also wants to dig into interoperability with also foreign countries. So I haven't made a slide out of it, but basically, if you look at Switzerland and what is special, what are the challenges specific to Switzerland when it comes to this project? One challenge is definitely the decentralized decision making. As you can see here, the cantons are involved. It's also a complex situation at the border areas. We have 2 cities, Geneva and Basel, which are at the border. Even Basel is at the border with France and Germany. So there's a lot of cooperation that takes place with foreign countries. We have also very different requirements from cantons that are actually cities like Geneva and Basel, and other cantons that are more rural or have mountains and so on. In Switzerland, we have also a focus on power resilience. And when it comes to rolling out radio equipment, rolling out a mast and base station, we have pretty time-consuming legal processes. And when all these pilot projects will be done, and we will also do some technical studies and take some decisions on the variants to propose, then we have to submit a proposal to the Federal Council for future actions. So what has been achieved so far? We have had discussions with critical infrastructure operators, so with representatives from rail, from the energy sector, from the road sector, to see what can be done in common. Because obviously, public safety is not the only group that has needs in terms of mission critical mobile networks. Railway has also similar needs for their trains to be able to control and pilot them. The energy sectors, especially if you think about smart grid, there is also requirements on mission critical communication and road with more ways to have cars communicating to each others and the coming of the autonomous cars. So discussions, what can be done, where are the synergies? When it comes to public safety, we have documented the main use cases. We have together with the cantons, looked at the requirements on this MSK network, on the mobile broadband network. And we have also defined the 4C network architecture that you see on the right-hand side of this slide. So this is for the engineers here in this audience. What you can see here is pretty similar to what you already heard from my peers in the other countries. So this is LTE or 5G based. You see a dedicated core network. You see mission critical services as defined by 3GPP, and you see a possible cooperation and interconnection with mobile operators. Here you see that we want actually to work with all mobile operators of Switzerland, either with RAN sharing or with roaming. We will for sure have one or even more with RAN sharing, and the other as backup with roaming. And when it comes to providing coverage, we might have our dedicated cells, or we will surely use the cells of the commercial operators, or we might have a hybrid solution, as you can see there in the middle. We also would like to have mobile systems. We are considering air-to-ground systems, and of course we need to ensure interoperability with the current narrowband mission-critical network Polycom. And we should not forget also the command and control center, which are part of this communication of each and every engagement of first responders. We have also worked a lot on commitments from all stakeholders involved. We've worked on governance. If we have to, we have to take decisions, to come up with variants. And of course, there we need to have all the stakeholders on board and agreeing to one variant to be brought forward. And when I mean stakeholders in Switzerland, it's mainly the cantons and the organization involved in public safety, but also other federal offices. Moving forward. This is then the roadmap that we have ahead of us. This is an indicative roadmap. As you can see, this year, one of the main tasks that will happen is a RFI towards commercial mobile operators. For sure, if we want to work together with mobile operator, we need a lot of information from them. We need to understand how we can work with them, how the operations will take place, and what network architecture can be put in place, and this will start then with an RFI. So we have done RFI in the past. We have even an RFI done in 2014 that was towards supply of equipment. So 2014 was pretty early. That's already 6-7 years ago. Now we need to talk with the mobile operators. After that, we'll look into other RFIs depending on the answers we got from the mobile operators. See where we still have open questions. We will also work on the setup and the various options we have, defining and going into the details of our strategy, our network architecture, what we want and what it means in terms of costs, in terms of responsibilities, in terms of SLAs, in terms of options. And that will, together with also the experience coming from proof concepts from the canton that I've mentioned, all that we come into together, and we will do an evaluation of the possible solutions for Switzerland, and we'll decide what options, what variants we brought forward. You saw, for example, my colleague Herman looking at 3 main options. Then we will look at also similar options, but go, of course, into more details. And once that is done, then we go back to to a political process. We need to write a proposal to the Swiss Federal Council that will end into a Federal Council decree. And depending on the answer of that decree, we will write what is called a Federal Council dispatch to get the budget for this network. And when that is ready, we will be able to go into realization phase. This, of course, depends on the Federal Council decree, and that we expect the beginning of 2024. So this is a pretty lengthy process. Many of the organizations, the public safety organizations that are involved in all this, are actually challenging this roadmap, because they would like to have this network and the capability before 2025. They would like to have it way earlier. I understand that need, and they're working on how this can be speed up. I'm already at the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for those very comprehensive presentations. It's my pleasure now to hand over again to Nina Myron, Deputy Head of Department at DSB in Norway, and also a board member of TCCA, for a brief summary of what we've heard today. Nina.
Thank you very much, Tony, and thank you to all participants and all presenters here. It's been a lot of information, and since we also have run over time, I think I can do this summary pretty short. We have learned that France, they are a step ahead. They are already in the procurement phase, which is, I'm sure they're enjoying that. It's a lot of work. They have focused on a system designed for interoperability. I also noted that they have realized that they need changes in telecom laws and regulations. The others are more or less just behind, some different stages, all in process where to get enough information to get decision from the government, doing that some differently. The Netherlands probably is number 2 in the line, which hope for procurement already end of this year. I would say some keywords here is timing. Astrid were wondering if the timing was right. Is the technology ready? At the same time, they have to look at 5G. What does that mean to their original strategy? But they focus on having strategy to fill the gap, because they need broadband services. Dedicated frequencies or not, some countries have some dedicated frequency, but not enough. So there will be some kind of hybrid solutions. I believe dedicated core is something that we all look for, but I don't know if this is who will own it. I think that's also a question for some countries, if it will be a service or if it will be owned by themselves. Interoperability and synergies is, I realize, is more on the table now maybe than we built it our Tetra networks. We saw some presentations of stakeholders, the governance models, which is complicated. And last, I registered that several countries mentioned the need to look at the legal and regulatory issues, and that's then I also can advocate that we TCCA now have established a working group looking at that. So yeah, I think again, thank you very much, everybody. It's been really interesting, and at least I've learned a lot. Thank you.
Thanks again, Nina. Unfortunately, we're out of time for a Q&A now, but we have all your questions. So, as I mentioned previously, there will be a full set of questions and answers prepared and published after the event. So that brings us to the end of today's webinar. We hope you found the information valuable, and I'd like to thank all our presenters once again very much for all their useful and helpful information. So let us know if you have any issues or points you'd like to raise, and in the meantime we'll go away and prepare that full set of Q&A for you. Thank you all very much. Stay safe and well, and enjoy the rest of your day or night wherever you are.